This is your Giro d'Italia rest day recap, in which I'll be breaking down the action from stages 10 to 15 from the second week of the Giro d'Italia to fill the void of the rest day blues. The Giro has continued to impress this year, and we have already had some very exciting stage racing in the heart of Italy. So without further ado, let's recap everything that happened from stage 10 to 15. Stage 10 saw another summit finish with an 18k climb on Bocca della Selva to get the legs working again after the first rest day of the race. The breakaway formed from the off, with Simon Clark of Israel Premier Tech being joined by Quinten Hermans of Alpecin-Deceuninck. And it wasn't long until the pair were joined by Alessandro Di Marchi of JK Alula, and Hermans was dropped on the first climb of the day. UAE Team Emirates seemed content to let the small break go up the road and let the attackers neutralise themselves, limiting the work that UAE would have to do. A large group of 27 eventually formed when the chasers caught Clark and Di Marchi and built a gap of over 3.5 minutes with about 60k to go. The group featured the likes of Max Schachmann, Simon Geschke, Romain Bardet, Julian Alaphilippe and Andrea Baglioli, to name but a few, and it seemed solid enough to maintain the gap, but as always, things are never straightforward when UAE Team Emirates are on the chase. The group swindled down as we got closer to the line, and Visma Lease Bike's Jan Tratnik launched a solo attack, which was followed by a four-man chase group of Bardet, Frigo, Baglioli and Paris-Pantra. The Frenchmen took charge, and Bardet and Paris-Pantra left Frigo and Baglioli to chase down Tratnik. Whilst it looked at times as though Tratnik would have a big enough gap to win, that wasn't to be, as Paris-Pantra dropped Bardet with about 3k to go before flying past Tratnik on the way to his first Giro stage win of his career and the 15th win for his team Decathlon AG2R in 2024. It's fair to say that not every stage of a 21-day stage race is going to be a nail-biting thriller, and stage 11 definitely fell into that category. A 207km flat stage lived up to expectations with promises of a sprint finish. A small three-man break, including Thomas Champion from Cofidis and a Visma Lease Bike duo of Edoardo Affini and Tim van Dijk, went up the road, but they were never really a threat to the peloton, which was largely controlled by the sprinters teams of Lidl Trek and Soudal Quickstep. The break finally got swallowed up by the peloton with just 30k of the stage to go, and it then started to become a battle of teams arranging themselves for the sprint. The final run into the sprint featured a few questionable turns, but most were able to avoid incident as the speeds continued to rise. And when the sprint hit, we got to see that Jonathan Milan is the fastest man at the Giro this year, winning the stage, which is now his second stage win of this year's Giro. His fellow sprint rival, Tim Merlier of Soudal Quickstep, was subsequently relegated from his second place after the Belgian rider quite clearly moved to the right-hand side of the road, blocking in Juan Sebastian Milano of UAE Team Emirates. It was full gas racing from the start of stage 12, with a tailwind resulting in an average speed of 57km in the first 30 minutes. An early three-man break held a gap of 20 seconds, but they were eventually reeled in by the peloton. Attacks were forthcoming, and one attack led to a four-man break with Simon Clark, Marco Maestri, Michael Hepburn and Edoardo Affini, who were able to push a gap out of about a minute prior to the first climb of the day. And it didn't take long into the first climb when a five-man group, including Julian Alaphilippe, Jonathan Narvaez, Benjamin Thomas, Ewan Costiol and Christian Scaroni, caught up the four-man break and looked to finally establish a decent-sized group of 9 riders. That group increased to 10 when Peleo Sanchez joined them after an incredible solo effort to bridge a 25-second gap. Alaphilippe and Maestri teamed up and pulled away from the group, forming a gap of 2 minutes and 15 seconds at its highest point as the chasing group continued to expand in size. And for the longest time it looked as though the duo of Alaphilippe and Maestri were going to be able to compete for the win. With the gap diminishing, Alaphilippe dropped Maestri on the final climb of the day and had a gap of 45 seconds with 10 kilometres left. The last 10k was edge-of-the-seat viewing as the whole of the cycling community was behind Julian Alaphilippe to pull off the stage win. He maintained a gap of 40 seconds with 5k to go, and even the duo of Jonathan Narvaez and Quinten Hermans was not able to catch the Frenchman as he pulled off an incredible victory. In doing so, he joined the elite group of riders to win stage victories across the Giro, Tour de France and the Vuelta, and he also proved that you can never write off Lulu. Stage 13 was a 179km pan flat stage, and as pan flat as it can get, with elevation gain of only 150 metres. The highlight of the stage, aside from an incredible sprint from stage winner Jonathan Milan, was crosswinds, which saw a split in the main peloton. And that probably tells you all you need to know about the stage. A small break of 3 Italian riders were able to go up the road, including 2 riders from Group Bardiani, Manuel Torozzi and Alessandro Tonelli, and Andrea Petrobon from Team Polto Cometa. But their gap of close to 2 minutes was never going to be enough for any of them to win the stage. The main excitement from the race came with about 60k to go when we had some crosswinds and Ineos Grenadiers, headed up by Filippo Ganna, started to pull on the front, which caused a gap with stage favourite Jonathan Milan being a casualty of the split. But the split only ever amassed to a gap of about 20 seconds and things all come back together with about 40k to go. And that was until Martin Marcigalusi and Dries Duputa launched an attack with 30k to go, but the duo were only ever allowed the next 20k before they were sucked back into the peloton as the sprinters' teams were keen to position themselves ahead of the sprint finish. Soudal, Lidl Trek and Jayco were among the teams on the front as the final Ks kicked down, but it was Lidl Trek who were best positioned, and an incredible lead-out from Fernando Gaviria launched Milan to his 3rd stage win of this year's Giro. A solid effort from Team Cofidis. Stanislaw Anielewski saw him come in second, just ahead of Phil Bauhaus from Bahrain Victorious. The second TT of the Giro came on stage 14 with a 31km effort for the riders, finishing in Desano e Garda. The second TT of the race was certainly a lot flatter than the initial TT back on stage 7, and so Filippo Ganna was one of the clear favourites to take the stage win going into the time trial. And despite Tadej Pogačar taking a 4-second gap on the first time check, it proved to be the top Ganna show as the Italian powered his way to the stage win, posting an incredible time of 35 minutes 2 seconds and averaging a whopping 53.4 kilometres per hour. The win was the 7th Giro stage win of Ganna's career, with the Ineos Grenadier rider already winning 4 stages in the 2020 Giro and 2 stages in the 2021 Giro. But Ganna's time in the hot seat wasn't all plain sailing, and nerves definitely started to show when Pogačar was on course, and a green time check at the first checkpoint for the Slovenian definitely brought back memories from stage 7. But come the second time check, things started to lean in favour of Ganna. Pogačar took a very respectable second place with a very impressive time of 35 minutes and 31 seconds, which saw the Maglia Rosa placing himself in the middle of an Ineos Grenadiers sandwich just ahead of Thymen Arensman, who himself put in a fantastic effort to ride to 3rd place. The impressive TT effort from Thymen Arensman moved the Dutch rider up from 10th place in GC to 6th. Geraint Thomas coming 4th, and Australian national TT champion Luke Plapp rounded off the top 5. The results of the TT also had a huge impact on the overall GC standings, with Geraint Thomas clawing back 2nd place ahead of Danny Martinez, but Pogačar was able to increase his overall margin over Thomas to 3 minutes and 41 seconds. Stage 15 was the Queen stage, and a monster of a day in the mountains, amassing over 5,400 metres in elevation over the 222 kilometres. And the man in pink, Tadej Pogačar, certainly put on a showcase as he rode to his 4th stage win at this year's Giro. The stage, much like most stages, started off fast, and a break of 10 went up the road and was quickly chased down by a larger group headed by Simon Geschke from Cofidis, who had missed out on the initial break. With a large group formed at the front of the race, Michele Scaroni and his teammate David Ballerini joined 4 others and pushed on and managed to open up a gap of nearly 2 minutes. With lots of undulating roads causing havoc to the group on the front, it was then broken down to a group of about 10 riders, including the likes of Jonathan Narvaez, Julian Alaphilippe, Nicola Conchi, Michael Stora, Nairo Quintana and George Steinhauser. And with about 20k left on the stage, it was the German rider from EF Education, George Steinhauser, who attacked, but he was closely followed by Nairo Quintana, who was keen not to let Steinhauser get too far ahead of himself. At the same time, back in the peloton, some incredible teamwork from UAE Team Emirates, which had been taking place pretty much the whole stage, but the familiar sight of Rafael Majka with Pogačar sitting on his wheel all but confirmed that the Pogačar attack was imminent. And with just under 14k to go, the Maglia Rosa went nuclear. Out of the fellow GC contenders, it was only Danny Martinez who was able to try and follow Pogačar, but not for long as the Bora rider slipped back into the GC group, rather than risk blowing up. From there on out, it seemed a certainty that Pogačar would win the Queen stage, but he still had a decent amount of time to make up to Quintana, who had subsequently chopped Steinhauser and was looking very strong himself in the high mountains. But as the kilometres ticked down, Pogačar kept motoring away and left Quintana for dust, with just about 2k to go. A horrifically steep finish to the stage did nothing to slow down Pogačar, who is now 6 minutes and 41 seconds ahead of his closest GC rival Geraint Thomas, with Danny Martinez another 15 seconds down. His current lead is the highest margin for the Maglia Rosa after 2 weeks since 1954, and short of a miracle, it's going to be almost impossible not to imagine him rolling into Rome as the winner of the 2024 Giro d'Italia.